Within the start of March Madness, there's actually a very interesting conversation that I did want to kind of go over and topic that I wanted to go into. And I know on this channel, it's been very men's college basketball heavy this week. But if you really look at it, the only time that I or anybody else really covers them is for this tournament, for March Madness. But I remember I was watching the games this past week with just some of my buddies, and something kind of came to my attention that I was thinking about. And as I'm watching these games, I'm sitting there, and I follow college basketball a pretty decent amount, I'd say. I tend to follow one certain team in particular, but I was watching this tournament, and I was like, within this very tournament, I follow Ohio State for men's basketball. They didn't make it this year, but within the tournament, I found myself struggling to name the names of 20 players. And then I brought this up to my buddies, and they said, man, I don't even know if we can name 5 players. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, maybe this is what the issue is with men's college basketball. And you just think about it. 10 years ago, the sport was in a much better spot just as it was. And I think you're looking at it, and it's completely without stars. The men's college basketball is completely without stars. I saw a report today of the upperclassmen, the players that are not freshmen. Only one player in all of college basketball is projected to go in the top 15 of the draft. That's how do you market a league without stars? I think the only league that can do it is the NFL, where you could have any team in the Super Bowl and they would get views to it. But you're looking at it, what would be the scenario that would get the most views in the national championship game? I would have to think it would be probably UConn and Purdue, because you have the most known guy in college basketball right now is Zach Edey, a player that will probably be a second-round pick in the NBA. And then you go to UConn, and it's not a star-driven team. They have an excellent head coach. They have really good players on that team too, but I don't think you can go to the middle of Cincinnati and ask a random person who the best player on Connecticut is. I don't think they'd give you an answer. I don't think they'd be able to, and I think that's the biggest problem with men's college basketball. And the only way that you can find a way to solve this problem, I would think, is you have to do one of two things. And I think you have to pivot to either not even considering having the stars, the young high school stars, maybe even playing in it. I say you let high school players, if they want, just be able to go straight to the NBA. What's the point anymore? If they're good enough to go to the NBA, let them go to the NBA. And then if you choose to go to college, then you would bring it back to the college football rule. In college football, you got to play, and I know it's a completely different sport, but you have to play 3 seasons. If you did that to college basketball, that would be the way that you would save it. That would probably be the only way left that you can save it within that. If there's a player that has a really good year and he's going to be projected a top 10 pick, he's going every time. There's no he's not going to the draft anymore at this point. And sure, it makes for more parity within college basketball, but basketball is such a star-driven sport. And you look at what women's basketball is doing, there's more stars in women's basketball right now. There's 3 legitimate stars in women's basketball. Like I said, go to that same guy on the street. There's a high % chance that he knows who Caitlin Clark is. He might not know the best player on Connecticut, but pretty much everybody knows Caitlin Clark. And why is that? Because you have players that are staying for longer and they're building more of a legacy there. Do you think anybody that would be to her level of goodness would stay in college basketball long enough to break the scoring record? No. So if you're looking at men's college basketball, it's a proud sport that has had some of the great moments you've seen, but it's something that really peaked maybe in the late 80s to, or maybe you could even say the early 80s to the 2000s, mid 2000s. Since then, like back in the day, you had runs of like Michael Jordan played at North Carolina for 3 seasons. That would never happen nowadays. You have players like Grant Hill, who played for a long time. He would have been gone pretty early. And those are the college basketball teams that you remember the most. And I think the one and done is like, imagine the Kentucky team that you had in 2015 with Julius Randle was there, Devin Booker. They had platoon squads. I remember that they did. Devin Booker didn't even start. He came off the bench, which is ridiculous to even hear. If you look at that team, imagine if they have to stay 3 years. For all we know, it becomes one of the most. It could have been in a similar conversation to, if not bigger than, the Fab Five. But you don't know that because it's a one and done. So it's just the sport of college basketball is a sport that has actually a lot of potential, yet it falls short because there's no storylines. There's no commitment to a player. There's no familiarity. There's no sequel to the first rendition of the player playing at the school. And it destroys watchability. And that's what's struggling from right now. And until you make a change to the eligibility rules, I don't know where you go from there. I don't know where you go in that spot. But I just did want to get that out there, that college basketball is really starting to look like it could die.